Hi, this is Kennedy, and now I'm going over the word wall for biology. First of all, the brain. So this part is frontal lobe. It's responsible for thinking and creativity, like movement, emotional control, complex problem solving, and any other stuff like those. And this red part is temporal lobe. It's like responsible here for hearing and balance and equilibrium, smell of course, and some language comprehension and emotion and motivation. And this part, the brown part, is called pituitary gland. It contains like hormones, growth or fertility. And this orange part is called brainstem. It's most inner region of the brain, and it's like basically control breathing, blood pressure, heartbeat, and swallowing. And also among this part, like in this part, there's an organ called cerebellum. It's a balance and coordination. And this green part is called occipital lobe. It receives the process of visual information. And lastly, like the blue one is parietal lobe. It contains sensory cortex, sensory, and is responsible for sensory and perception, and visual orientation, and all of those intelligence part is also controlled by this lobe. Next, we got nervous system. So nervous system basically can split to two types of branch. First one is central nervous system, the body master control unit, and second one is peripheral nervous system, the body is linked to the outside world. And from the central nervous system, it contains three main parts: spinal cord, brainstem, and brain. Spinal cord is a column of nerves between the brain and peripheral nervous system. Brainstem connects the brain to the spinal cord. And brain divided into three major parts: the hindbrain, the midbrain, and forebrain. Peripheral system can split to two types of branch. First one is the autonomic nervous system. Regulates involuntary bodily process, including heart rate, respiration, digestion, and pupil contraction. Operates automatically without conscious direction, so you don't have any attention to do this. And somatic nervous system carries sensory information from sensory organs to central nervous system, and relays motor or movement commands to muscle, controls voluntary movement. So this somatic is voluntary movement, and autonomic is involuntary movement. And the autonomic nervous system can split to two types of branch as well. First one is sympathetic nervous system, prepares the body for action and stress. This is called fight or flight. So it's like when you are in danger, the sympathetic nervous system gonna activate. And parasympathetic nervous system calms the body and helps the body to conserve energy. So after a dangerous situation, parasympathetic nervous system got activated. Next, we got the structure of neuron. So a neuron is a nerve cell, and there are three types: sensory neurons, motor neurons, and interneurons. So neurons basically look like this. This part, things stretch out, it's called dendrites. It receives signals from other cells. And cell body also have another name called soma. It organizes and keeps the cell functional. And by looking down, this nucleus controls the entire neuron. Then outside, we got cell membrane, which protect the cell. And by looking down, we got axon hillock, generates impulse in the neuron. And then we got axon, transfers signals to other cells and organs. And we keep going. This yellow part is node of rainbow, allow diffusion of ions. And the blue part, called myelin sheath, increases the speed of the signal. And on the myelin sheath, there's a cell called Schwann cell, produces the myelin sheath. Then we got axon terminal, forms junction with other cells. Next we got glial cell in nervous system that plays a role in the formation of myelin and the blood-brain barrier. Respond to injury, removes debris, and enhances learning and memory. So basically there's a different kind of glial cell. Neurotransmitter, chemical messengers are specialized for communication from neuron to neuron. So this actually is a neurotransmitter molecules. And this process is called reuptake. A neurotransmitter reabsorption by the sending neuron. Synapse, the place where the axon of one neuron meets the dendrites of another. So this is the axon terminal, and this the another dendrite of another neuron. And this part is a synaptic space, is also called synapse. Neuroplasticity, ability of brain tissue to modify itself and take new functions. Neurogenesis, creation of new neurons in the adult brain. Threshold, membrane potential necessary to trigger an action potential. An action potential is like the process of firing information among neurons. So this area is the action potential. After each firing, they need to rest for a period of time. So here's a refractory period. Action potential, a neuron impulse, a brief electrical charge that travels down an axon. This is actually a graph for it. Limbic system, sit between the older brain structures and the cerebral hemispheres, the two large halves of the brain. So it contains hippocampus, amygdala, hypothalamus, and thalamus. Next, we got brainstem, parts of the brain between the spinal cord and the cerebral cortex that contains the midbrain, pons, and medulla. So this whole part is brainstem, and this blue part is pons. Thalamus, a forebrain structure that processes sensory information for all senses except smell and relates it to the cerebral cortex. So basically, like the green part is thalamus. A corpus callosum, a thick band of nerve fibers that connects large areas of the cerebral cortex on each side of the brain and supports communication of information across the hemispheres. So this is a cross-section of the brain, and this part is corpus callosum. It connects the two with left hemisphere to the right hemisphere. Hypothalamus, structure below the thalamus, responsible for maintaining a constant internal state. So hypothalamus is basically this purple part. Amygdala, a part of the limbic system that plays key roles in fear, excitement, and arousal. Amygdala is basically like this part. Somatosensory cortex, the blue part, portion of the brain which interprets body sensation. Cerebral cortex, outermost part of forebrain, responsible for analyzing sensory processing and higher brain functions. Motor cortex, an area at the rear of the frontal lobes that controls voluntary movements. Wernicke's area, parts of the temporal lobe involved in understanding speech. So this basically blue part is this area. Broca's area, controls language expression in the area of the front lobe, usually in the left hemisphere, that directs the muscle movement involved in speech. Hippocampus, part of the brain that plays a role in spatial memory. So this red part is hippocampus. Pons, part of the brainstem that connects the cortex with the cerebellum. Like this part is pons. Medulla, part of brainstem involved in basic functions such as heartbeat and breathing. It's right here. Cerebellum, little brain, Enables non-verbal learning and memory, judge time, order our emotion, discriminate sound, coordination and balance, and also of course muscle control. So basically like the cerebellum is like looking like this at the bottom of the brain. Interneuron, neuron that sends message to other neurons nearby. Endocrine system. Endocrine system, a system of glands and hormones that controls secretion of blood-borne chemical messengers. Hormone, chemical released into the bloodstream that influences particular organs and glands. And those are hormones for male and female. Adrenal gland, tissue located on the top of the kidneys that release adrenaline and cortisol during states of emotional arousal. So adrenal gland is like at the top of two kidneys. All or nothing principle. A neuron can release all of its neurotransmitter or none. fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, technique that uses magnetic field to visualize brain activity using changes in blood oxygen level. PET scan, position emission tomography, imaging technique that measures consumption of glucose like molecules, yielding a picture of neural activity in different regions of the brain. EGG, electroencephalograph, a recording of brain's electrical activity at the surface of the skull. So basically like this. CT scan, computed tomography, a scanning technique using multiple X-rays to construct three-dimensional images. Spinal cord, thick bundle of nerves that convey signals between the brain and the body. Procedure that involves serving the corpus callosum to reduce the spread of epileptic seizures. So our brain can split to two parts, so left hemisphere and right hemisphere, and it connects with the corpus callosum, and our left side of body is controlled by the right hemisphere, and our right side of the body is controlled with the left hemisphere. So there are three ways to block the transmission of neurotransmitter. So first one is the agonist, mimic or copycat for neurotransmitter. And the antagonist blocks the neurotransmitter, drugs that occupy receptors but do not activate them. Antagonist block receptor activation by agonist. Reuptake inhibitors stops neurotransmitters from reuptake into the presynaptic axon terminal. Process of those three ways is basically like this. So agonist, just like copy the neurotransmitter and replace its position, and antagonist is like blocks the neurotransmitter, and reuptake inhibitor is like prevent those transmitters from reuptake.